Good evening. Our special guest this evening is Eli Wallach, a great performer, a great actor, a great friend of Tel Aviv and the State of Israel. My name is Noam Semel. I am the Israeli Consul for Cultural Affairs in the United States. Co-host with me will be this evening Eitan Green, a distinguished Israeli filmmaker and film director. Good evening, Eitan.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Eli Wallach.
How are you?
Eitan Green, as an expert of American movies, as an Israeli, when you hear the name Eli Wallach, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot of parts in wonderful movies, wonderful American movies like Baby Doll, Magnificent Seven, the story of Romance of a Horse Thief, movie, Girlfriends, and can name much more.
You know, my background is theater, and I ran the Haifa Theater for 10 years. And for me, Eli Wallach is, of course, Cafe Crown that I saw 2 years ago at the Public Theater, The Diary of Anna Frank, Major Barbara here on Broadway, hundreds of roles in TV productions, BBC series. We'll discuss all these ideas, but I think you forgot something about Mr. Eli Wallach, about his career.
Maybe?
Yes, I think so.
You sure?
Yeah. I want you to hear something, okay? Can you hear the music? Can you hear the music?
All right.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. What does it mean to you, Mr. Wallach?
Well, I wish I'd heard the music while I was making the movie, because they put the music in later.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, well, the film turned to be a big success here and also in Israel. While making the movie, did you feel that it's going to be that big success?
No, you just have to do the work and hope that the movie will work.
But do you feel there's anything special in this movie?
Well, I love the attention to detail that Leone had. He'd take a book of photographs of the Civil War, and then he would capture the costumes and the way the people looked. I thought that was brilliantly done.
Mr. Wallach, you know, of course, that in 1956 you made your first film, and your debut in the films, you won the equivalent of the Academy Award at the British industry. We have with us a picture of that movie, Baby Doll. Do you remember something about that first movie?
Oh God, I was so young. Yeah, but this is I was playing a Sicilian.
Yeah.
Who ran a cotton gin in Mississippi. It's based on a play by Tennessee Williams called The 27 Wagons Full of Cotton. And we shot it in Mississippi in the wintertime.
This film was directed by Elia Kazan.
Elia Kazan, who did A Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront.
Was that the first time you worked with him? Or
I
was the
worked
only
with
time?
him on the stage.
Yeah.
That was the first time I worked with him in the movies.
Uh-huh. What kind of production did you make with Elia Kazan on stage?
There's a wonderful play by the same author, Tennessee Williams, called Camino Real.
Yes,
you
very
did a lot
famous.
of Tennessee Williams.
Yes, I did a lot. I did The Rose Tattoo.
Exactly.
We found in our archive a picture from you, with you and Marilyn Monroe. I want you to show. I would like you.
Yes.
What does it mean to you, this picture?
Well, it was put in because her husband, Arthur Miller, who wrote the thing, knew that Marilyn and I used to dance a lot together. So he wrote in a dance sequence. And Gable was watching. But no, he starts by dancing with her, and then I interrupt and I take her over.
You know, there are not so many actors in the world that can tell what does it mean to work with Marilyn Monroe.
I just want to interrupt the question, because in that movie it was not only Marilyn Monroe. There was Clark Gable there, Montgomery Clift, you yourself, of course, and John Huston was the director. Miller was there, so it was kind of loaded with superstars. How was it any special?
Well, the publicity, the brouhaha, the hoopla before we started was about, once the movie started, we all focused and went to work. Huston was a wonderful director. He directs, he doesn't tell you what to do. He says, you do it. Eitan, do it.
Yeah.
And if it's too much, he'll say, why don't we try something else, kid? And he'll try something else. But he doesn't force you into any preconceived ideas, director.
Yeah. And the rest of them, like Clark Gable and Montgomery Clift?
Montgomery Clift spent 2 months before we started the movie going to rodeos, riding horses. And he got thrown off a horse and it got a big cut against his nose. And the first time he appears in the movie, he's wearing he's got a scar on his nose. And the first scene he did, he went into a telephone booth and made a call to his mother. And when it was finished, it was about 2.5 minutes on the screen. That's a long time.
Yeah.
When it was finished, Houston said, fine, print it. And he said, you mean I don't get to do it again? He said, no, you'll never do it better. So he did it once.
You know,
Yes.
thinking about this movie, I always feel very sad. Not about what the movie tells, but the movie itself, because there's, in my mind, there's a picture of Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe, Montgomery Clift. Wasn't it the last movie of the three of them?
No,
Clift,
Montgomery
Gable,
Clift
and
made one more movie after that. He did Freud after that. But Gable died 10 days after we finished the film. And Marilyn died a year and a half later. But she started another movie but didn't finish it.
Didn't finish it,
No.
yeah.
We found another picture that I'm sure means something very special to you, Romance of a Horse Thief.
Yes, and this is one of the few times I played a Jewish horse thief in Poland. And we shot it in Yugoslavia. And the first day, over the credits, you see me stealing a white horse and riding down a hill into the river. Well, I didn't do it it's a long shot. So the stuntman rode the horse down the river, into the river, and the horse started to drown. So they stopped the cameras, they sent a rowboat out, they got the horse back, and he's standing on the land like this, and the director says, all right, Eli, you get on the horse, now ride past the camera. I said, I'm not going to get on that horse. He's terrified. It had no saddle on it. But I finally got on the horse, and when he said action, the horse took off with me, and we rode for about 30 minutes, all through Yugoslavia.
Ooh.
So that's how I
You know, I'm very happy we're mentioning this movie, directed by Abraham Polonsky. I believe he also wrote the script because he's a scriptwriter. And I like this movie very much. I like your part very much, and I like the other movie of Abraham Polonsky, Tell Them Billy Boy Was Here, but he never made any more movies.
No.
How was that movie to work with?
Oh, I enjoyed him. He sees visually. He has a scene with Yul Brynner and Leni Kazan, and he remembered a painting called Déjeuner Célèbre by Manet, of a picnic on the grass.
Yes.
So he reproduced the picnic on the grass with Yul Brynner and Leni Kazan.
What does it mean, picture to you?
Well, this picture just came, it's not out yet.
Yeah.
This picture means 4 months in Italy and Sicily. It's directed and written by a genius named Coppola, Francis Coppola. And in this picture is Al Pacino and Talia Shire, who's Coppola's sister. And I'm playing an old friend of the family, an old mafia don, I talk like that. And I said to Coppola, if I'm such a good friend of the family, why wasn't I in Godfather 1 and Godfather 2? He says, well, you were in Sicily, he said.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an extraordinary movie.
When will it be released?
In November or December.
This coming year.
Yeah.
And we remember you from the movie Nuts with Barbara Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss, and we found this picture from this movie. And we found also a brochure showing you and Richard Dreyfuss and Barbara Streisand. How was it to work with so different characters like Barbara Streisand and Richard Dreyfuss?
I tell you, most of this movie takes place in a courtroom. I'm a medical expert, a psychiatrist, a prison psychiatrist, who decides that she's not fit to stand trial. And the whole movie revolves around my testimony. So I did the first week I shot on the stand with Dreyfuss. And now I had to go sit in the courtroom for another 6 weeks. So I said to the director, Martin Ritt, I don't want to sit in the courtroom all this time. But he says, what do you mean? If I turn the camera around, I want to see you sitting there. So I said, well, I'm playing this psychiatrist. He said, I don't care what you're playing. You've got to sit in the courtroom. So after 3 weeks, I went to him. I said, I have to leave. He said, why? I said, I have other patients. I have a lot of other patients.
Yeah.
I've got to go to the hospital and work on the other cases.
I want to ask something about this. I mean, you mentioned Martin Reed, and of course you worked with a lot of veteran directors like Kazan, Siegel, Huston, Sturges. But at the same time, I saw your filmography here, and I thought you have this tendency to work with first-time directors also, like you did in Girlfriends.
Yeah, but you see, your past credits don't mean anything. If you work with somebody who's dedicated to what he's doing and is good at it, I don't care if it's the first time.
But is it any kind of special for you to work with first-time director?
No,
you like it?
Because I say, I know how to play the instrument. I have my instrument. The first-time director, I just did one for a young man graduating from NYU Film School. He asked me, could I do it? His uncle or one of his relations is Peter Guber, a movie producer.
Yeah.
Peter Guber. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I like the script. So I did it. I worked 3 days. And he rolled around with the Steadicam and all the equipment and so on. And I think it'll be a charming little movie. But it was fun working with this young man.
Is the script the basic thing for you to pick a role?
Right.
Always was?
Right. If I wouldn't do some movies that are so violent and so distasteful to me, I wouldn't do it. I don't care what they pay me.
How do you decide what movie to do and what movie not to do, what to touch and what not to touch? You know?
Now I'm very happy when they call me to do a movie.
Yeah.
But if it interests me, for example, Girlfriends.
Yeah.
Girlfriends, I played a rabbi with a wife and 2 children, and he develops a yen or an urge. He wants to have an affair with this little girl. She's become a star now, named Melanie Mayron. And the challenge between his religious and moral precepts as against his sexual needs and wants was a challenging thing.
You have wonderful scenes there with her when, after taking one wedding or, I don't know, bar mitzvah, you go out with her and just in front of the door. You remember that scene? Yeah. Trying to hug her, being a little bit embarrassed. It was just great. I loved that scene very much.
Eitan mentioned your Jewishness, so I would like to go further on and to speak about your relationship with Israel. When was your first time to visit Israel?
I was making a movie in Italy, and they asked if my wife could join me and we'd go to Jerusalem. They were going to open a theater called the Sherova Theater. And they since changed the name to Jerusalem Theater.
No, it's
now
still, no, I'll tell you, it's the Jerusalem Performing Arts Center. Consists 5 different halls, by the way, a theater and a symphony hall for the Symphony of Jerusalem, and some other spaces that are used by the Israel Festival and, of course, by the Jerusalem Theater.
So we went.
When was it?
Oh, about 18 years ago, 20 years. I don't know, when it first opened.
Yeah.
They were still painting. They were still putting the carpets down and the lights in. But it's a beautiful thing.
More than 20 years ago.
It is?
Yes. And what did you do there? Did you perform? Did you?
Yes, I did a piece. I did 2 pieces. One by Clifford Odets called I Can't Sleep, a monologue.
Yeah.
And the other by Chekhov called Swan Song pieces. I'm going to film Swan Song in a couple of months.
I see. And since that time, how many times did you visit Israel?
Well, then I went back to do a movie, a kung fu movie in Eilat.
Kung Fu?
Kung Fu. I was in a pot in the middle of the desert. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
No.
No.
Did you?
You didn't miss much. but then I went to do a documentary on the city of Tel Aviv for the mayor.
We'll discuss about it later on, but I'm speaking about films, yes.
I did a documentary for a Canadian company on Jesus from the time he was born all over. We went to each place.
I want to ask, I mean, Jesus in Israel is logical, but Kung Fu in Israel, that's something, you know.
They were using the desert. Why
really?
Not? Sure.
As what, the desert in China?
No, I don't know where it was. But then I did one for the BBC called The Impossible Spy.
That's right. It's a very well-known movie about the Israeli spy Eli Cohen, who was captured by the Syrians.
And I played the head of the Mossad, and I love to wear the open shirt, like they all wear.
Yeah. Let's see how he is trying to persuade Eli Cohen, who is played by...
John Shea.
That's right. And how you are trying to persuade him as an Israeli to take that job. Okay?
Yeah.
So The Impossible Spy, a production of the BBC.
You don't look like an intelligence agent, Cohen. Everything about you is wrong. Your manner, your style, your attitude, all wrong. This in itself makes you irresistible to the Mossad.
Look, I'm not a spy. I have no intention of becoming one.
Come now, Cohen, you're too old to play the debutante. You know exactly why we want you. For a start, let's review your practical qualities. You have one very great gift, an exceptional memory. We hear about these things.
I'm an accountant. I only remember numbers.
You only tried with numbers. Now we want to test your powers in other spheres.
For the purpose of spying?
No, for the purpose of observing, subsequently relaying those observations to me.
Observing who? And for what reason?
Whoever I tell you to.
I heard you people were insane. Up to now, I wasn't sure. What kind of fool do you think I am?
Let's stop fencing about, Cohen. I'm talking about Egypt, 1955. I was there too. Our military intelligence was very happy with the work you did for them. And you were smart enough to get out then. Now you've got a second chance.
It's all in the past.
Don't you miss the challenge of it?
No.
Of course. You're just an ordinary man trying to live a simple life.
And what's wrong with that?
Nothing at all, except in your case, Cohen. We're treading deeper waters, aren't we? Aren't we, Mr. Cohen?
Leave my life alone! You stay away from it!
I'm afraid I can't do that. Your life was mine before you walked through that door. You'll receive one of these twice a month.
No one pays that kind of money for observation.
Take the check. Consider it a pre-employment bonus. Another will follow in 2 days. Your wife and friends will be told that you are now a government buyer. You work for the Purchasing Commission of the Ministry of Defense. All the checks will be signed by that commission. And then you remember the day you were shooting. You wear it really.
No, thank you.
Mr. Wallach, do you remember the time when you were in Israel to do this movie?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yes. You know, when you're in Israel, the atmosphere is charged with the people, the joy. I love antiquing, you know, and I go all along in Tel Aviv and
In Jaffa.
Jaffa. And, I like going to the markets, you know.
Was the cruiser Americans?
No, this is made by the British Broadcasting Company. So it was half English. The director was English, and the photographer was, I think, Israeli.
What does it mean, or how can you converse with Israeli actors that do not speak English like Americans on one hand? On the other hand, they're Israelis. So
Well, Noam, for 25 years I've been making movies in Italy. And in Italy, half the time, they don't speak any English. So I've played with Germans, Spaniards, and they're all playing in their own language, and I'm playing in English. And we're shooting the scene, and I wait for them to stop speaking, and I keep listening. But you speak your own language.
yeah, you know that Eli Cohen in Israel, it's like a legend. He's a hero,
Yes, yes.
and the whole story. And we grew up with this story as Israelis?
It's a sad situation.
Yeah,
I don't think his wife wanted to help with the film because she's still bitter about what happened to Eli Cohen.
Yeah. There many books were written about it, and this is a BBC production, but it was premiered on HBO in 1987, and then it was shown again in the BBC and received wonderful reviews, by the way. And,
well, I was hoping that they would do a series of television movies for Israel and England and America of the function of the Mossad, different stories with the Mossad. So I would repeat the role.
Did you speak with people of the Mossad before you?
No. You know.
So what is the image of the Israel Mossad in your?
A lot of actors say, "Well, I was playing a coal miner, so I spent 3 weeks down in the mines," or I'm going to be a prize fighter, so I'm going to go get knocked out. Or, I'm going to put on 60 pounds like De Niro. And some actors don't do that. If you're going to be a king, you can't say, "How do I be a king?" Right? If the people come in and say, Your Majesty, you're a king.
Maybe you spoke with some people of the Mossad, but just that you didn't know. Some of the electricians were
Yeah.
from the Mossad, you know, right there.
No, I don't know.
What did you do during the time of Second World War? What was your activity?
I had just graduated from an acting school. And the final project at the school was to do a dance. And I danced, and then somebody stood on a bench and pointed to me and said, "Uncle Sam wants you." And this was in 1940. And sure enough, Uncle Sam got me in the end of 1940, and I went into the Army. I spent training in Texas as a medical administrator. Then I went to Hawaii right after Pearl Harbor. I was brought back to America and became an officer. And then I sent to North Africa, Casablanca, Oran, then the invasion of southern France into Marseille and Nice, then Paris and Berlin.
Mr. Wallach, I asked you the question about your career in the American Army because of the Israeli movie, The Impossible Spy. We saw a scene that you are trying to persuade Mr. Eli Cohen, the Israeli spy, to take the job, to represent Israel and to take the advantage of doing something for his country. Now we would like to show another scene that you are trying to persuade him to skip the job, to leave the job, because you are feeling that it's a very dangerous time for him to go back to Syria. So how could you find the way to play two different aspects of an officer?
Well, because I realized that the information that I wanted, that he had already gotten, was all I needed for the rest of the job. So I didn't want him to expose himself anymore. Also, we knew that the Russians were sending in very sophisticated equipment. So whenever he'd send out information by radio or shortwave, they might be able to pick it up. So the danger was increased.
How do you prepare for a role? Like, how do you prepare? Did you prepare for the role of the Mossad? Like, you're going through a long research?
No.
You talk to people?
You read the script and you say, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to recruit somebody to do a job for a country. Now, I'm in Israel. I'm wearing the shirts the way they wear it. I'm eating Israeli food. I'm breathing Israeli air. And slowly, and I'm listening to a lot of Israelis speaking Hebrew, and I get the feeling of it. But I'm not saying, I don't go home at night thinking, I'm really a secret agent for the Mossad. You know, I don't think that.
Yeah.
We'll see now another scene from The Impossible Spy with you and John Shee.
You know I've got to go back.
I know it's getting more dangerous all the time. I know sooner or later somebody's going to get onto you. Any day now they'll bring in new equipment. Pinpoint your radio as soon as you transmit. Okay, so you can change locations. You can handle that. But you can't handle somebody recognizing your face. They've got people in Tel Aviv. What if somebody sees you and your wife walking in the streets? And what happens when we blast their guns to bits? You think they won't put their heads together and say, how did they know exactly where to bomb? You're a brilliant agent, Ellie, but your luck will run out.
The terrorists, Al-Fatah, Now, you got my report that they're active again. I mean, you know what animals they are, what they can do to women and children. It's money I gave them that's helped set them up again. I've got to go back and monitor what they're up to with my contacts there. I can find out.
You're not listening.
When I was in Egypt, I had to...
I know all about Egypt. Your friends were tortured. They were hanged. They didn't give you away. If you felt you had to repay all that, what do you think you were doing in Syria?
Are you saying that you don't need me there?
I'm saying I think you've done enough. From our point of view and from yours. Whatever your reasons. I'm saying go home, lead a normal life.
But you're not saying that you don't need me there.
I'm saying I don't think you should go.
Mr. Wallach, The Impossible Spy was one aspect of being a Jew, to play the head of the Mossad, and to play and to perform in a serious, in a drama, in a TV drama like The Interview, done by you as a Holocaust survivor. It's another aspect of performing as a Jew. How did you find, or how did you work on that role of an Holocaust survivor in The Interview?
Well, you know, I had a direct relationship since I was in the war and understood about Nazism and the rise of Hitler and so on. In southern France, I was the commanding officer of 250 German prisoners. And I'll never forget the day Roosevelt died. I made them line up while we lowered the flag and we played taps. The first time I went to visit a prisoner of war camp in North Africa, they had wonderful knife, fork, and spoon sets, and I wanted a souvenir, and I was an officer, so I could get in. And as I walked in, a big 6'3" member of the Africa Corps stuck his hand out and said, "Heil Hitler." And the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I thought, oh my, ooh, you know, and I walked away. But I did one movie called The Wall, and we shot it in a place called Katowice, near Auschwitz. And we all went to visit Auschwitz.
When was it?
Oh, this is 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. And it's something that you can never erase from your experience. Now, The Interview was dealt with a man who hides his past. He doesn't want anybody to know about his past. But he applies for $10,000 more insurance, and the computer makes an error and prints another zero. So the insurance company sends an investigator to find out why this little Jewish tailor on the Lower East Side wants $100,000. And the movie is basically the interview between these two.
Okay, so we'll see now a scene from the movie The Interview under the direction of Victor Stoloff,
Good.
Who produced it. Eli Wallach is an Holocaust survivor.
The children?
Yes.
Had other children?
Yes?
How many? How many?
Two. A girl, a little girl, and another boy.
You told me before you only had one child, Morris Moskowitz. I asked you that. Any other children? You said no. Now, what are you trying to pull here?
I don't think of them. I try not to think of them. They're gone. They're all gone. I try very hard not to think of them.
Gone.
Yes.
You mean dead?
Dead.
And your wife?
Gone. She's gone.
You mean dead?
Yes, dead.
Look, you came here by yourself to join your son Martin and your uncle Moses right here in New York in 1946, right?
Yes.
What, the others, they couldn't join you?
No.
Your wife? Your daughter, your other son, they couldn't join you?
No.
Well, why did you lie about the other children?
For me, it is better they never existed.
Your wife, your daughter, your son? What happened to them?
No, listen, no, you don't understand. I try, every year I try. Every year I go to the river. You know what Rosh Hashanah is? I stand on the pier, I take a handful of my bread, my sins. I throw them into the water. The tide, it takes the bread away, but my sins, They stay here. They don't go. They stay with me. They always stay with me.
What happened to them, Mr. Moskowitz?
No.
Look, I can't guess. You're going to have to tell me.
Gone. They all gone.
Dead.
Dead.
Yeah, what was the cause of the death? Was it cancer, tuberculosis, diabetes, any hereditary, contagious, or communicable disease?
No.
Look, what is it, Mr. Moskowitz? What is it? Look, you have to tell me. Look, your wife, your son, your daughter, why aren't they here? Why did they die?
Killed. They was killed.
Oh, accidental death, huh? Was it auto accident, plane crash, derailment, ship? Were they drowned?
No.
Mr. Moskowitz, I've got to know. Tell me what happened.
In the street it was. They're standing there, my Golda, my little Shendel, my mental. They're waiting there, out in the street for their papa. See, I run into this doorway, you see? I hide. I think they're right behind me. Then I look out slowly. They're still there. They're still there with all those people. I want to run out. I want to say, I'm here. I'm your father. Here, I'm with you. But I cannot. I dare not. There's a guard there with a machine gun. I want to run out. I want to distract him. I can't move. I stay. I hide. And I watch. I see them fall. I see them dying. I see them take the little bodies in my Golda, and they throw them like garbage in the truck. After the uprising, the survivors, they're all taken in the concentration camp.
And you were a survivor. You got away.
No. I don't get away. I live, yes. But I don't get away. You see, I can breathe.
The scene from the interview is very powerful, Mr. Wallach. And you know, in Israel, many Israeli filmmakers are trying to do movies about Holocaust, about second generation of Holocaust survivors. And it is a problem even in the theater, how to perform an Holocaust survivor or how to perform in such productions, plays or movies, because you cannot compete with the reality. Tell me, maybe you can give some advice to the Israeli actors or to the Israeli filmmakers.
Well, I would say individualize it. Tell the story of one specific incident. Don't try to cover the whole canvas. We did the Diary of Anne Frank, my wife and my 2 daughters and myself, for a year. But that's a focused, concentrated study of what terror is. So I would say, yes, find, they did one about a man who had a big business with the Germans, and he sympathized and saved the lives of a lot of the workers. Be specific and take an incident.
Okay.
And that's the way I would
Okay,
do it.
so meanwhile, we changed positions in the studio. Eitan Green, the Israeli filmmaker, had to leave the studio because he had the flight back to Israel. And Kobi Weitzner, an Israeli playwright, joined us because you made something with him. And we'll discuss now your career in the theater. And we'll begin with that play. Kobi, tell us, please, what is the play?
It's a comedy. It's called Karpilevsky, or What Is to Be Done with Him. It's a double name. It's about a little politician in New York, in the Jewish circles. And he thinks that what he writes is poetry. Now he is elderly and he dies in the arms of a prostitute. And he comes before God, much to his surprise, because he was kind of liberal on the left. He didn't think much of those things. And they don't know what to do with him because he's neither bad, he's not good. And God, who has weakness for the arts, curses him with talent. And he sends him back to Manhattan for 1 year. And Eli played God.
Eli played what?
God.
God.
Right.
Okay.
And he sends him to Manhattan, and his mission, his assignment is to write this play and get it produced. And it's not that easy. He fails, but somehow it's a comedy, so we have to have a happy end. Gabriel kind of, he becomes his lawyer, and he somehow convinces God that there is merit to failure, and they let him in. Paradise, it is.
Eli, tell me please, I read your bio and I saw that you made many movies with very well-known film directors. On the other hand, you gave chance to young playwrights, to young scriptwriters. What made this play that you decided to take this part and to do it, although you didn't know him before, right?
Well, I didn't know him. Well, with a name like Kobe White's, now I'm interested.
Okay.
But also the fact that he writes with great humor. And to play God, how often do you get to play God? You know, to call the shots. But I was taken with the idea of a playwright, of a man being forgiven for a year, to go back to Earth to produce a play. That is an insurmountable problem today in terms of the economics of the theater. So I found it very interesting. And we read it almost at sight, didn't we, Kobe?
Yeah, pretty much.
And but the audience loved. They really were enraptured with this play.
So Kobe will tell us exactly what we are going to see now on the screen.
We're going to see a clip. Well, since he fails and he cannot make a living in the theater, he winds up with this rabbi. It's about this time of year where people hire cantors for the high holidays. And the rabbis give him the rap, the shtick, how to go about the service. Because every rabbi has his idea about how to conduct the services. So this is the playwright forced to be a cantor, because he gave up on all his previous jobs. He has to eke out a living, and he is there with the rabbi who explains how to do it, how to do the service on the high holiday.
So I didn't only play God, I played a lot of the parts.
Yeah, well, this is one of his representatives.
Okay. Yes. Let's see Kobe Weitzner's new play as a play reading by Eli Wallach.
I hear you direct plays. My wife is an award-winning playwright. She won the Women for the Arts Award for her play From Marx to Moses.
Marx to Moses?
Yes, yes. It is about a Russian Jewish woman who taught Marxism to the mentally disabled in the Soviet Union. And then she became aware of her Jewish identity, and after years of struggle came to this country, and now she has a kosher bagel and lock store on the Upper West Side. It's a very human story. She also received a scholarship from the Women's Interfaith Creative Workshop in Boulder, Colorado. They're doing very interesting things. Her latest piece is very interesting. We're going to use it in the Rosh Hashanah service. You got your siddur? I want you to mark here before. Here. I want you to read her new piece. Here, read that.
An open letter to God.
Yes, an open letter to God. Here, let me give you a copy. Maybe you should keep it between the pages.
An open letter to God?
No. With more feeling.
An open letter to God. Princeton, October 10th.
Right. You start from here. Dear Madam / Sir, following our last contact at the Women's Interfaith Creative Prayer Workshop in Boulder, Colorado, I'm glad to inform you about the publication of my new anthology, Creative Prayers for the High Holidays. Please find enclosed a copy of the text. Yeah? On Rosh Hashanah before the service, we introduce the new converts to the congregation. I will call upon our two new converts to step forward. Now, you got my wife's anthology? You fill their names in, the blank. Jennifer and Robert. This is very important because otherwise you may forget their names in the middle of the ceremony.
Shall I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Jennifer and Robert are sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G.
Kobe.
Right.
What is he saying? What's his name? That Eli Wallach is performing? What's Karpilevsky?
Karpilevsky.
Karpilevsky. What
In
does
Yiddish,
it mean?
In Yiddish, when we say Karpenkopf, a carp is a carp, right?
Yeah.
And it means somebody who is, he's a man of
Bright.
insight, right? But it also meant ironically. Like when you say Moshe Grois, he thinks he's great, but actually...
Now the quality of the film is not very good because it was just shot
Of course.
at a reading, so there was no lighting or anything.
It's good for our viewers to know that this is the process of doing a play. First of all, a play reading, then an off-Broadway production, maybe an off-Broadway, and maybe a Broadway production.
Yes.
Well,
Am
it
I right?
depends on God.
Yeah. By the way,
Depends on
speaking
God,
of God, by the way, we owe credit to Solomon Corbett, who played the playwright. And speaking of God, I watched Eli doing the role, and there was something at one point he says to him, to the playwright, sit. And this was not in the original script. And with a little movement of the hand, the whole audience there was such a laugh. So that's
sit.
right. So I ran home and I added to the script, sit. And this is what a playwright can learn from a great actor.
Tell me, we are, Mr. Wallach, we are speaking about theater, and now I would like to ask you a question about your wife, Ann Jackson, the very famous actress. I understand that you met your wife in the theater.
Yes.
It was on stage, your debut on stage. Is it right?
Yes,
It's written
we
in
were
books.
doing a one-act play by Tennessee Williams called This Property is Condemned. Now, I want to tell you about Anne. I was in a prison in Utah doing a movie called The Executioner's Song, written by Norman Mailer. My wife was playing Kadar, her name is Kadar. She was the private secretary and friend of Golda Meir.
Yes.
And she was playing...
Lou Kadar.
Lou Kadar. Anne was playing Lou Kadar in Israel. So they asked me if I would play Sadat. I said, well, and he just, had been assassinated. So I said, yeah, I'd like to, but I'm in prison in Utah. And Jose Ferrer was going to do it, but he was afraid. He withdrew, and Robert Loggia played it and was wonderful.
You made many theater productions with her and many movies with her.
Yes.
With her. How do you relate to each other while you're on the set or in the rehearsal room? Like husband and wife?
No. When
Your
we're doing the
opponents,
play,
you're fighting for your...
Yes, and I think it has kept our marriage going all these years because we seem to pick plays that have tremendous fights in them. And so we get it out on the stage rather than in real life. I think she's a wonderful actress, and I enjoy working.
Do you think she is the best to perform with you as a husband and wife in theater, or you will prefer another actress to perform in front of you?
No. If I only had one choice, it
Yes.
would be my wife playing with me.
Are you discussing the roles and the material and the scripts at home?
We're very careful with one another because the creative process is a very personal, private thing. If I say to her, I don't know, she gets upset. And if she says it to me, I get upset. So hands off, we don't...
I saw you and your wife 2 years ago in the public theater in Cafe Crown. And I liked very much this production, and I think it's a wonderful story and a wonderful play about the Yiddish coffee shop and the Yiddish theater that was there. Did you perform in Yiddish?
No.
Can you speak Yiddish?
No.
No?
As a matter of fact, in Godfather 3,
That you are doing now?
that I finished,
Yeah.
Coppola said to me 2 days before we were going to shoot, he said, I want this particular scene to be played all in Sicilian. I said, well, I don't know. He says Sicilian. And then we'll have subtitles underneath. So I memorized the whole scene in Sicilian. And the first line I said was, "Che bello vita storica." Now, people say, why? It sounds Sicilian. I think it sounds Sicilian. Yiddish would be hard for me.
Yeah, but you performed that role in Cafe Crown as if you are a part of the tradition and a part of the whole...
Yes, but Jacob Adler and Maurice Schwartz, they all had these wonderful, elegant manners. Their speech was wonderful, maybe with a slight accent. But I didn't play it with any accent. I played it straight.
Yes, but your character was presented as if you are somebody from the Yiddish theater, or somebody who is a leader in the Yiddish theater.
Well, when I picked the clothes, when Santo Loquasto picked the costumes, I had a fur collar and a black hat and a cane with a ivory hand. it just gives you the character.
You made also the Diary of Anne Frank. What can you tell us about this production? Because this is a very powerful and touching production.
Well, I tell you, it was very painful at the end as the Nazis are coming up the stairs to turn and look at my two real daughters and think what would happen if I were. By an accident of birth, I wound up in America rather than in Poland.
That's right.
So it was not easy. That play is a very difficult, soul-wrenching play because you have nightmares thinking, you know, in a nightmare you feel you're falling and there's no way to stop. Well, that's what we felt while we were playing.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about the dilemma, or let's say the question that is raised today among the theater actors. I'm speaking about Miss Saigon. You made that's very famous tea house of the August Moon. You see this, found it in our archive. And you are performing as a Eurasian. Am I right?
Yes.
I know I'm playing an Okinawan.
Okinawan.
An Okinawan is an Asian, not a Eurasian. And half the part is in Japanese. And you
did it.
And I did it in Japanese. Now it would be very difficult because of this whole controversy to play an Oriental on the stage. And I think part of me is divided. I think what Equity did was good in their heart, but not good in their head. And I think they made an error in terms of good relations with the theater, with the city, and with the English producers.
Yeah.
I incidentally did this play in London for 1 year, and then I was brought to America to play it. I think there should be greater opportunities for Asian actors, for Hispanic actors, for black actors. I've played Mexicans. I even took over a role when a black actor died of a heart attack. They flew me from London to play a movie with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas called Tough Guys. I said, he's a black actor. He said, it doesn't matter what the color is. I think every actor should be given an opportunity to play whatever.
I agree with you.
Incidentally, I've seen Shylock done many times. My only comment about that is that Shylock should have a legal aid lawyer in the trial scene because he can't handle his own defense. But it's a fascinating play. I saw it in China in 1980 in Shanghai. A beautiful production of The Merchant of Venice. Beautiful play. So I think Equity made a mistake.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, once I produced the world premiere of the play Ghetto, and the role of the head of the Jewish police was performed by an Arabic actor. And there was a question in Israel if an Arab can perform the head of the Jewish police, the head of the Judenrat. And I said, yes, of course, an Arab is an actor, like a Jew is an actor, and everybody there are possibilities for everybody, and this is, let's say, the decision that should be made by the artistic director or the director of the play or the director of the movie.
However, Equity's attitude was, let's have some affirmative action. Let's make up for past grievances. Yeah. Let's try to find Joe Papp in his theater. I just saw Richard III.
With Denzel Washington, you mean?
Denzel Washington. I saw Taming of the Shrew. Both he used black actors, and it didn't matter. After a while, the color disappears, and you're watching actors.
You're absolutely right.
And I played Mexicans, Jews, half-breeds, Eurasians, all over the place.
Did you play a Nazi officer or something like that, or you have never had?
Never. It would be very interesting. Yeah? During the war, I used to do an imitation of Adolf Hitler. So I think.
Yeah, you used to do it. And where did you make it? In performances, or?
No, we do it for hospitals. In the hospital, we put a show together for the patients. And that's
I see. I want to come back to Israel.
Good.
I know that you and your wife, Ann Jackson, are very good friends of Israel, very good friends of Jerusalem. You were there for the opening of the Jerusalem Performing Arts Center. And you are very, very good friends of Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv, the first Hebrew city We call it Tel Aviv, the first Hebrew city, because it was the first city that they spoke Hebrew, and I'm not speaking about the old Jaffa or Acre or Nazareth or Jerusalem, of course. Tel Aviv, what does it mean, Tel Aviv, to you?
Well, Tel Aviv has an extraordinary mayor, Shlomo Lahat.
Of course.
He's an ex-general. And he says, if Israel is destroyed, it will not be destroyed outside, it'll be destroyed from within, with competition and greed and drugs. And the big problem now is with the influx of all different varieties, Ethiopian Jews. I spent an afternoon with Ethiopian Jews. They had T-shirts on and tennis shoes. They didn't know what that was. They couldn't figure out how you could eat and go to the bathroom in the same house. They all went outside. They never went there. They'd never seen an elevator. Now, Israel has become a very interesting magnet to pull back in Jews. I'm going to read a book very soon about a man named Meyer Lansky. And Meyer Lansky is the first Jew who was rejected by the state of Israel.
That's right.
In the homecoming of Jews.
Yeah.
Because I thought they made the same mistake Equity made. They should have allowed him to stay.
The authorities, you mean, that time.
They should have allowed him to stay.
It is a question in Israel whether to accept everybody who is coming from Ethiopia or from Russia, because now there is a question, who is a Jew? Because there are many Russian Jews that are coming to Israel, and according to the rabbis, they are not Jews.
Listen,
you know this question.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the man who's in a riot, the communist riot, and they're getting hit over the head by a cop, and the man says, wait a minute, I'm anti-communist. And he says, I don't care what kind of communist you are, and he hits him over the head. So when you say, who tells who's a Jew? I'll tell you they'll find out who's a Jew. And so I think they should open their arms. The fantastic thing about America, the brilliant part of America, and that Statue of Liberty is send me your huddled masses, send me your poor, send them. And we do take in. We took in 180,000 Cubans. We've taken in 200,000 Vietnamese that we made an error on. An error in going over there in the first place to Vietnam. I think Israel should take in...
Israel is taking everybody, as you know. Israel is absorbing now every month thousands of Russian Jews that are coming to Israel. Many of them are artists, by the way. Many actors, many playwrights, musicians. 1,500 musicians came to Israel during the last 6 months. And we are expecting more and more.
You know, Canada, I spent a lot of time in Canada. Canada became a very rich country by bringing in Czechs, Swedes, Italians. I spent an evening in a theater in Toronto with Italian actors. They go to Naples and bring actors back to Toronto for Italians who are there, who want to savor and taste their own language and their own food. So Israel can be a remarkable country and a remarkable experience.
It is, and Tel Aviv, we spoke about Tel Aviv.
Oh, I spent a week with going from place to place.
Yeah.
And what Lahat did that was brilliant, he said, look, I want to see a Jew play in the Davis Cup. I want to see a tennis star. So they have the tennis complex. I went and played tennis with these kids starting at age 4, 5, 6, 7, so on. Then he said, what about old people who want to play instruments, who knew how to play an instrument? And he has music centers.
That's right, in Jaffa and even in poor neighborhoods, you can find music centers.
And gymnasiums.
You're right, athletics.
Parks and athletics and so on, all to make the idea of life richer. And I think he's an extraordinary man.
He is, and the cultural activities in Tel Aviv are tremendous. You can find in Tel Aviv today, in an evening in Tel Aviv, more than 25 different cultural activities like concerts, theater performances, ballet, dance companies, modern dance companies, and all kind of activities, and pop, of course, and jazz, and blues, and the coffee shops are full. And we would like to see, together with you, a documentary that you made with your wife, Ann Jackson, about Tel Aviv.
Oh, for the Tel Aviv Foundation.
That's right.
Yeah.
You made a movie about it.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll see Tel Aviv from the eyes of Eli Wallach and Ann Jackson. Tel Aviv.
There is a tension between the different ethnic groups, no doubt about it. But with one major difference. all our parts of the nation know and recognize that if we will not integrate, Israel will not exist.
And it's so good to see you here again.
Oh, it's lovely to be here.
Pleasure, really.
In your home at last, again.
Well, some years, but you're back again, and you don't know what a pleasure it is to have you here in Tel Aviv and to have the pleasure of knowing that you are here in this room where you acquired your 2 paintings. If Reuben were around, he'd be very happy that it's you and no one else.
Oh, it's very sweet.
But it is marvelous that it is now open to the public and people are coming as they did before.
Yes,
I mean,
it's a very live thing. There are streams of people coming all the time. Everyone finds something to identify himself with the house. And we're very happy that the Tel Aviv Development Fund helped us renovate the house and made this possible.
and brought us here to see it
Yes,
again.
very good.
It was a minion with that other man coming in as the tenant.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
What is your name?
Welcome. My name is Ron.
Hello, Ron.
I'm the manager of this community center. Will you come in, please?
Yes.
Shכונת Shapira. There will be a swimming pool, but today there is no swimming pool.
One day I came to the vice mayor of Tel Aviv and I told him, look, mister, this place is very ugly and doesn't serve the community as well as I think that community center must serve, yeah.
Eli, we don't have to prove to our viewers that you and your wife are very good friends of Israel and Tel Aviv. We spoke about your career, we spoke about the Holocaust, we spoke about the establishment of the State of Israel. We spoke about less than 1% from your story.
I'd like to tell you one little thing. You talked about the Holocaust. In a little town called Skokie, outside of Chicago, near Evanston, this little town has, most of the population are survivors of the Holocaust. They all have the tattoo. And about 15 years ago or more, the Nazis decided they would want to march through the town.
I remember.
And I played the lawyer for the town of Skokie. And Danny Kaye played a survivor. And Danny Kaye and I became very, very close friends as a result of this experience. I spent the last year with Danny Kaye before he died. Skokie represented the law against the heart, you know. They didn't march through. They finally got the right to march because you can't have a precondition to a law. You can't go back retroactively and say, now you can't do it, because they have a right to express themselves. And I think one of the healthy things is to allow them to express themselves and not to pay attention to it. We keep track of all these Nazis, you know, and hopefully they'll never rise above a few kooks. But Israel is a big star, yes.
Thank you very much, and you are also a big star.